up with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
Yes, friends, what's cracking? Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. It's a hot, sunny day in the kingdom, back in the office, studio lights on me, and I'm sweating my ruddy gonads off, and we are 15 seconds into the video. So welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. I shouldn't have worn this Chelsea shirt. This was before they got the breathable vaporwave. I'm actually going to change Chelsea kits. Oh. Right, that's better. Modern day breathable Chelsea training Trivago kit. So welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the office. And yes, Yannick's bald head guided us through to the end of my glasses are steaming up. Guided us through to the end of the season where we won 5 out of 5, undefeated in 6. And qualified for Europa League, provided Manchester United don't win the FA Cup. So, things are looking pretty good. Cole Palmer won Young Player of the Season, won about 1 million Man of the Match awards, Chelsea Player of the Season, Players Player of the Season. You know, Jackson looks good, players coming back from injury, people are going, oh, and Cuckoo's really good. Everything's coming up Chelsea, right? Well, in today's video, I'm going to do a season review. I'm not going to necessarily talk too much about the team tactics, but I want to give grades to the players for Chelsea this season. I did something similar on my second channel on Football Yannick. I graded each club in terms of how they performed this season, but I want to do it with the players. Generally talk about how we're better attacking, maybe dysfunctional defensively, and then I'm going to cite an article from The Athletic from Twomey and Johnson talking about the big Pochettino review. So we'll start with grading the players, how I think they, performed and how things went, and then we'll delve into the truth of this review, and actually, could he go? People are talking about Kieran McKenna. Because Brighton are looking at him, that's why you want Kieran McKenna, right? It's just never easy with Chelsea, it's just always so dramatic, and we're going to learn today! So thank you, as always, for joining me here on the channel. If you want to support the content, you're welcome to. Super simple, just like, subscribe. If you choose to subscribe, hit the bell, follow me on Instagram, yada yada yada, and let's get into it. So, we'll do players, and then we'll do the manager. Starting off with goalkeepers, Rob Sanchez, £25 million signing from Brighton, was okay. Looks like we could have done alright with him. Of course, Kepa bowing out early doors. We planned to do the season with Kepa. Didn't work out like that, so Rob Sanchez was the purchase. Of course, we've got Ben Roberts, the goalkeeping coach at Chelsea, who remained from Graham Potter's time here. He liked him, he brought him in, he had a few iffy high-profile mistakes, got injured, and ultimately for me, not so great. Of course, he did come in a couple of times again for Petrovic in the Cup. He looked wobbly, man. I do have some sympathy for him because he hasn't played for a long time. He was generally highly rated, but to come in and be Chelsea's first team goalkeeper, I think it's been quite bad, so I'm going to say D+ for Rob Sanchez. Now, Georgi Petrovic is a £14 million MLS goalkeeper, absolutely not brought in to be the first choice, almost certainly the second choice, but by default became the first choice because of Sanchez's injury and ultimately underperformance. Now, I personally think we need a new goalkeeper. I do. It's not the priority, it's not top of the list, but in my opinion, for us to become truly great again, we need like that kind of superstar or a goalkeeper. And I just don't think Petrovic is the guy. And it's not because he costs £14 million from the American League. It's just because I'm just not sure. I'd love it if he could become that guy, but ultimately, for his age profile, the cost of the transfer and being thrown in and ultimately growing with this team, I think he's done very well. I'm going to give him a B-, Georgi Petrovic, but that doesn't mean I'm definitely sold on him. Right, let's reel through a little bit faster, Jan. Levi Colwill moved at left back. We didn't like that. Centre back, very, very good, very promising. He did make some mistakes. Of course, his ceiling's incredibly high, Levi Colwill. Defensively, Chelsea conceded a record amount of goals, which we have to take into account when we're talking about goalkeepers and defenders. But at the same time, I think it's largely a system and chemistry issue as well, which comes from the top, but also just comes from time together. I think Levi Colwill will become great, but I think for this season I'm going to grade him C. Let's keep the left-sided defenders or players who've played on the left side. Thiago Silva, he did have an iffy phase, Thiago Silva, in the middle third, sort of 75% into the season, but he stood up tall. He's immense quality. And, amongst chaos and children and dysfunction all around him, he was this, serious big boy footballer. We all love him to bits, so maybe a bit of blue-tinted perception there as well, but I'm going to give Thiago Silva a B+. Staying on the left, Benoit Badiashile, I think he's been pretty poor actually. When we first signed him, he looked like he could be great. I think he might have had one or two definitely good games for Chelsea this season, but largely I've been quite disappointed by him. I'm not going to dig him out completely because it's so unfair to be cruel to defenders that have these situations around him, but he's made mistakes, including an own goal yesterday. I'm actually going to do a C- for Benoit Badiashile. Keep her going! Alright, I guess it's Axel Disasi. He put in an all-timer performance away in the Etihad. Amazing. Then we thought, wow, what a centre-back we've got. Just before that, he was doing the stage dive in the crowd when we played Palace and everyone was loving him. You know, he's had a comedy own goal, he's made mistakes, but I think he's top 3 for minutes played for Chelsea. He's also played at right back. I don't think he's good enough to start for Chelsea. I don't think either of the Monaco boys are. I do have sympathy because he's played everywhere though, and he's been utilised a lot. But still, I'm going to give him a C-. I think it's been poor, largely. Now, Trevoh Chalobah was injured pretty much all the season, but he has played lots recently, and he's played really well. And because of the situation he's come into and played so well, I'm going to give him a B+. And I do love Trevoh, and I'd be totally happy for us to keep him. But I'm sort of giving him the B+ in the same way that I'm giving Georgi Petrovic a B+. That I don't think necessarily they should be starting for Chelsea, even though they look like the form players of their position at the moment. It doesn't mean they should be starting for our club. I'd love him to stay. If he gets sold, I'll understand as well. But he's done very well. He's done all that's asked of him very well. B+. Alfie Gilchrist as well. It's kind of like he's been the closer, the finisher, and he's played at right back as a centre back. Scored that goal. I'm going to be quite generous and give him a B- because he's just been thrown into a crazy situation, and our weaknesses has largely been that we're all a bunch of kids. He himself is a kid, yet he's been pretty sturdy. Of course he did get run, ragged at the Emirates against Arsenal, but still, he deserves a good rating for that. Let's talk fullback, starting with my boy Chile B, Champions League winning left wing back. Left winger, he started. Look, the Chilwell experiment early doors, no one agreed with, especially me. Chilwell is an amazing left back. You might not want to hear it, but in certain systems, he's incredible. Not in this system, and I think, obviously coming back from injury, he was in really poor form as well. By his lofty standards, I think he's done poorly, Chilwell. I'm going to give him a D+. He didn't really get to demonstrate his, at times, amazing defensive ability, and of course he loves goals. He loves linking with Reece James when they're both playing. Neither of them friggin' played, didn't get an opportunity, so a poor rating for Chilwell. What did I say, D- or D+? Just give him a D+. Now, Cucurella, the man of the moment. That's maybe not the moment anymore. Of course he was inverting into midfield and suddenly looked like Busquets, but he's still very flawed, Cucurella. He's a very, very good footballer, very good with the ball at his feet. He's not going to score goals. He did get a great assist the other day, of course, but he's not synonymous for getting assists or scoring. I don't think he's good in the air at all. Obviously, he's quite small. I don't necessarily think his presence in our defensive third or 18-yard box is very good. So you're thinking, what is he good at? Well, he's good at a lot of things in the middle of the pitch, and he's he's got a high work rate. And he's got a very high temper as well. That last game against Bournemouth, arguing with Areola, getting a yellow card, is all needless. I don't think we're going to sell him, and I think he's going to be useful. And he's only, 25, 26, Cucurella? He can get better. And I think, again, from not playing to going into a new role, I think Pochettino deserves credit for that, but Cucurella deserves a lot of credit for that. So I'm going to give him, Cucurella, a B-. Ding! So let's move over onto the other flank, Reece James. Now, when he's actually playing football and not kicking people, he looks amazing. Unlike Chilwell, Reece James looked like, provided he's on the pitch, I can be the guy. But I'm going to be a little bit more critical and brutal with James because I think he's probably our best player over Nkunku, over Palmer. He's meant to be Chelsea captain. He had 3 suspensions this season through disciplinary action, and that's just not good enough. So he didn't play, obviously a lot down to injury, some of it down to his own poor behaviour. So I'm actually going to, you got to behave on the pitch. Even if you're not a captain, I'm going to give him a C-, even though he looks amazing when he's playing football. It's rough though, Reece will be back and he'll be amazing. Our midfield, this is going to be a tough one, I think. I'm not going to, rank Lavia or Cassidy. Ugachukwu did play a bit. Maybe Ugachukwu deserves, a C plus because he came and did a job in a few games before he got injured. But Gallagher, I think Gallagher, not only was he in contention for our player of the season all season, he's played in multiple different positions. Sometimes when Cucurella inverts, he goes to left back. You can trust him. You know, that game against Bournemouth at the end, that, you know, intervention he made, he's always available. He's towards the end of the season, he started scoring goals and assisting as well. So I kind of want to weigh my opinion onto how the season ended a little bit as well. And I feel like Gallagher deserves an A. He deserves an A because he's just great. He's always available. He's there. And again, I want to keep Gallagher. I'm not sure he's going to be a starter in the elite Chelsea team that wins the Premier League. I think he'd be like starting half the games, always coming off the bench and featuring. A bit like a Kovacic, maybe for Man City now. But I don't want to lose him. But in terms of his application, his leadership, of course wearing the captain's armband, he deserves an A. Now, let's talk about the £100 million boys plus. I'm going to start with Moises Caicedo. I was very critical of him in the first, 7 months of the season? 6 months plus? Saying, I know this guy's good, he's supposed to have it all, but I'm yet to see it. I do feel bad for him, and maybe it's the management and the coaching, but he ended so strong. Not just that wonder goal, which of course might be goal of the season for a lot of people yesterday, but he's just looking and coming into his own, and when you play him the right way and give him, you know, the opportunity to play like he wants to play, this guy's going to be the best midfielder in the world, maybe. I mean, this is why he's a record fee for a midfielder, £115 million, because he's 22, his ceiling's, you know, out of space. He's just absolutely incredible. But he did have a very, very difficult start. So I'm going to give him a C plus, because I was very, very worried about him because he was playing like a sort of average CDM, and now he's playing like the guy he's supposed to be. I feel like that, you know, ranking will just soar up next season when he finds consistency. Now, Enzo, I'm very mindful to completely dig him out here because he's had that hernia injury and was playing with injections. He did have a couple of games where he looked really good and was playing great balls, and when the game was played in front of him, when he wasn't playing in the number 10, when the game was playing in front of him, he looked pretty darn magnificent. But ultimately, it's not his season. I want him to go and have a good Copa America. Now he had the surgery, and guys, just because I'm going to rank him a C minus doesn't mean, or grade him should I say, doesn't mean I don't rate him. I think he could be absolutely sensational. He's already demonstrated immense ability, but you know, the midfield, well, those two didn't click really, did it? There was a couple of games when they did, when they found some form, and then it didn't, and it might be systemic, it might be the surgery, but you've got to be harsh and critical for these players because they can be so good, you know? And yeah, some of you might be going, Jan, come on, it's not their fault, it's the dysfunction of Chelsea. Whatever, this is the game that we're playing right now. All right, attackers, I'm going to go quite quickly now. Nkunku didn't play at all, but I do think he's amazing. He scored 3 goals in 2 starts for Chelsea. Good finishes as well, he's a great, great player, but I'm going to give him a neutral C because he hasn't had the chance to show what he's all about, but it does look like he will be most capable of being elite in the Premier League. Sterling, I do feel bad for Sterling because he's chipped in with a few goals, a couple of free kicks, but ultimately it's not gone well for him. I'm going to give Raheem Sterling a C minus. I was going to do like in the D, but you know, he scored the winner yesterday, has scored a few, that great free kick. You know, he had like a game with 3 goal involvements against Luton. I know it's Luton and it's not good enough, and for the money he's paid, but yeah, not completely disastrous, and we should try and get him off the books if possible. Mykhailo Mudryk, better. He found some form. He's got a few goals. He looked like towards, you know, the end of the season that people were, well, I was trying to explain to my viewers that he's not been bad in games. He's offering a different outlet on the left flank in this new tactic where Cucurella inverts and we play a lot on the right flank in an overload. He's not part of the overload. He's the relief tactic on the other side, and he showed he could do that well. He's really undercoached, not just by Pochettino, seemingly his whole senior career. He's super raw and he needs to learn so much, but he's got better, especially after the first 6 months. I'm going to give him a C plus because, you know, he's getting better and he's settling in and the fans are giving him appreciation at Stamford Bridge. It's slowly starting to move the needle, you know, in the right direction. So let's do right-sided wingers. Oh, I just remembered. I think I forgot Malo Gusto. I think because Malo Gusto's been playing right winger the last couple of games when Pochettino's brought him on. Malo Gusto gets an A. He gets the same as Conor Gallagher. He's been absolutely amazing. He did get a red card, He has, which is not good, but he is young. He's turned, 21 yesterday? He's a child, and he's played really well. Absolutely built for the Premier League. So, 2 A's so far, Gallagher and Gusto. Right-hand side, Noni Madueke. I was concerned for him early doors. He always looked good, didn't he? I sort of watched him for England under-21s. He's got a bit of swagger, but looks stronger. He looks less like an under-21s getting bullied that was just playing in Holland, and now he looks like a Premier League winger that will run, that will work hard, that's not going to get thrown off the ball, and actually has got the cojones on him to try something a little bit different, which we need, which Pochettino encourages. He found a bit of form towards the end. I do think, though, he can be a lot better. I'm going to give him a B- though, because he is one of the younger kids. He does have a discipline problem, like in terms of, or a behaviour problem. Like the thing with the penalty was a bad look, but I think that's literally an important part of the growing of him growing this season. And I actually am quite pleased with where he is. And again, this is a little bit like Petrovic. I don't think he's going to start for Chelsea very shortly, but if he hangs around and keeps developing and keeps expressing himself like that, he could be a very useful squad player. And he, of course, cost 25 something million. So it's not like we've got to sell him and get this money back. No, keep him as a rotational player. See if he can work his way into the team. Good. So there's only one A+ S tier, and yes, you've guessed it. It is, of course, Cole Palmer. Just absolutely blew everyone out of the water. He's got the most goal involvements in the Premier League this season. That's over Ollie Watkins and Erling Haaland. He's won Young Player of the Year. He'll probably win Young PFA Player of the Year. I could go on. He's just been sensational, amazing, incredible. He's A+ S tier. I would have loved to have rated players like Carney Chukwuemeka as well, but we didn't see enough of him really. And same with, I don't know, Cassidy, those kind of attacking midfielders that look good, but I just didn't see enough of them really to give them a grade. And of course we end on Nico Jackson. He's the only really striker worth talking about here. I feel like 14 non-Premier League goals, and his development's been incredible. Not just because his numbers are better weighted for the second half of the season, or indeed the last 2 months, like his shot accuracy, all those just all his metrics are way better, but his discipline. Remember, he got 5 cards for dissent. That just went. He got rid of that. He learned. He was always making runs offside. That went. He learned. He worked on his game. He missed a bunch of chances, but then he scored a bunch of goals as well. And that game against Bournemouth is a demonstration of him playing really, really well. And he did play really well against Bournemouth. He didn't score or assist, but look at what he did in the game. It was excellent. So I'm going to give him a B-, a 30 million or 32 million pound striker, winger that we bought from Villarreal to become the Chelsea starting striker. Massive, massive pressure, unrealistic expectations, and ultimately a very good return, all things considered, and his development's been great. So a B-. And finally, Pochettino. Chelsea scored a lot of goals. He's had to deal with a lot of adversity. 14 injuries at one point is just absolutely insane. It's a much stronger starting 11 than what we put out. We always had the youngest squad in the league. We always had the youngest starting 11 in the league. He made loads of mistakes. He didn't always say the right thing. Sometimes just because it's his second language and whatever gets lost in translation. But how you finish is much more important than how you start. And he's finished strongly. Undefeated in 6. 5 wins in a row, players scoring goals, looking a little bit more defensively solid, innovation with Cucurella. I think he might get sacked, Pochettino, which we're about to talk about in a moment, but I think ultimately, if you look at what I was calling all season the near impossible job, to end in 6th, to reach a cup final, a semi-cup final, we should have won the semi-final and the final, but to get to them with this youthful team, I think he's done very well. I'm going to give him a B-, Pochettino, which some of you may think is generous, but I think when you step back, take a breath, look at the whole season, the injuries, the training, how the players are, getting better and how they feel about him, I think he's probably done very, very well. So let me know what you think. What do you think about the grades I've given the players and the manager? Comment down below if you take issue with anything I've said. I welcome the comments and responses, so I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. And we're actually going to spend some time now and look over this article and find out what's going on with the Premier League, the Pochettino review, and are they going to sack him? Twomey and Johnson write this, and now all Pochettino can do is wait for his phone to ring. It did not take long after the final whistle of Chelsea's last game of the season for the focus to fix upon what happens next to the coach. that his performance over the first year at Stamford Bridge will be subject to a review by the club's hierarchy. And this is well established. The result of the assessments will determine whether Pochettino, having steered his club into 6th place finish and qualification for Europe, will extend his stay into a second season. In classic Chelsea style, uncertainty reigns. The head coach dropped the not insignificant news in his post-match press conference, of course, after the Bournemouth game, that he shared a dinner with Todd Boehly on Friday. He said this: "It was a very nice dinner together. Look, my staff tomorrow are going to fly home unless tonight they decide another thing or tell us to stay. I'm going to stay a few more days in London. My door is open and my phone is going to be on. But if I invite you alone and you and me are having dinner, it's not a bad thing, no? If I need to tell you something bad, I say over the phone or let's go for a coffee." So yeah, Pochettino essentially saying we had a nice dinner together. So surely I'm not going to be sacked, right? Because we had dinner together. Right? That sounded like cause for optimism. It was strange that there was no sign of Boehly at the stadium. Once he had concluded his media duties, Pochettino did not join co-owners Bedadik Barley and Jose E. Feliciano, plus co-sporting directors Winstanley and Stewart, as they chatted with the players on the pitch. Pochettino will take some satisfaction from his side's resurgent form over the second half of the season. He'd punched the air at the final whistle with their latest victory and then turned to thank his trusted coaching staff. There was a dash to point to someone in the West Stand where the VIP sit. Who was it? Egbali? My wife, Pochettino clarified afterwards. He gave every Chelsea player, whether they'd featured or not, a warm hug. Backup keeper Marcus Bettinelli enjoyed one of the most animated pep talks, despite not making a single appearance this season. There was even a conversation and cuddle with Belle Silva, wife of the departing Thiago Silva, 3 months after the headlines were generated by her tweeting, "This, it's time to change." Yeah, I couldn't even get through that. That was funny. Obviously, there was all that like, oh, I think Silva might even have been dropped, Thiago, because of his wife's behaviour. Of course, he was injured, but I think there was probably worse. She did apologise on social media as well. Like, clearly, that was the wrong thing to do. But yeah, it was nice to see Pochettino and Belle Silva hug it out and have a laugh. And yet, amid it all, there was no wave to acknowledgement of the crowd and no chant of gratitude aimed in his direction. He ducked out of the lap of appreciation and simply strode off down the tunnel to reveal details of his Friday dinner date. So what happens next? Before we find out about what happens next, I just want to say at this point, yes, I am surprised he didn't sort of clap the fans or thank the fans on the final day, but we spoke recently about how he's not going to try and have this fake emotion like, oh, you know, kissing the badge and all this kind of stuff until he builds something. He's even reiterated, like, look, I'm not going to celebrate 6th. This is Chelsea. He's finished the season like kind of how he started it, saying this isn't good enough. It's all the middle stuff when he's saying like, oh, we need to understand this is not Chelsea anymore, of the old Chelsea, like this is the reality. And now he's ended the season with saying, this is Chelsea, we need to win. Ugh, I mean, I get it, it's tough. Let's find out what happens next. So who's conducting the review? Well, it will be led by co-sporting directors Winstanley and Stewart, but everyone will be involved, including key members of the ownership. In that regard, it's worth remembering that the representatives of Clear Lake Capital, who are most influential when it comes to how things are ran at Chelsea. One of the other voices that will be consulted is Head of Performance Bryce Kavanagh, who has quickly become a trusted figure at the training ground since being hired from the FA. Pochettino himself won't be ignored. He will be given the opportunity to air his views and discuss his thoughts about the future. So what is the possible outcomes? There are 3 potential scenarios. First, the 12-month option in Pochettino's existing contract could be triggered, tying him down to the summer of 2026. Alternatively, the board could offer the head coach a contract extension beyond this point. Certainly with Chelsea participating in the FIFA Club World Cup in June 2025, the hierarchy will want to avoid the possibility of the head coach's deal nearing its conclusion while they are participating in a major competition. And of course, the third scenario is him leaving Chelsea. By the way, we keep forgetting about the Club World Cup. We literally just snuck into the qualification because we won in 2021, which is the start date, or won the Champions League that is, which is the start date of the winners qualifying. So we literally snuck into the back door. And that's going to be a huge cash earner, this new format of the Club World Cup. Loads of big teams, of course, like Man City are in it as well. Liverpool maybe? Or are we just the only 2 English teams in it? Anyway, loads of high-profile teams, a massive competition that will bring in a lot of money, which is good for Chelsea. So when will this review happen? The club expects it to happen within days rather than weeks. The situation needs to be made clear sooner rather than later. Chelsea want to crack on with their plans for next season, some of which Pochettino has already helped shape, but achieving some clarity is critical. So in the review, how important will the team's recent form and style of play be? Chelsea's form since late December is the 4th best in the Premier League. They've won 12, drew 5 and lost only 3 of their last 20 league games. However, the season will be judged not just for the last few months. For example, at the start of April, Chelsea were only 2 points better off than the same stage of last year, when they limped in 12th. The hierarchy had aspired to return to the Champions League and could consider the disappointing results over the first half of the campaign, or wasteful 2-2 draws, of course, with Burnley and Sheffield, as critical in falling short. I mean, even if we got those extra 4 points from Burnley and Sheffield United, we would have finished 5th. Had 5th offered Champions League football, then that would have been an amazing season for us. But of course, the coefficient is as such that the Premier League didn't get the 5th Champions League spot. Chelsea have undoubtedly been far more entertaining to watch under Pochettino. They've scored 102 goals in all competitions. Oof, there's a little bit more on the style of play and performance, but you know the deal. Concede a lot of goals, score a lot of goals, kind of generally get better towards the end. Does Pochettino want to stay? That question remains open. Pochettino has made some more positive noises recently, insisting he's already made plans for Chelsea's pre-season tour of the United States, and stressing that the project he's overseeing needs more time to match the history and the standards of Chelsea Football Club. But we are less than a month removed from Pochettino raising the possibility that he, rather than Chelsea, could initiate a parting of ways. Yeah, remember that? He was like saying, it's not just the club that needs to be happy, I need to be happy. Maybe I want to leave. You know? He has not cut a particularly happy figure at Chelsea in recent weeks. This has been a very trying season, navigating the, quote, circumstances the Argentine refers to on a weekly basis with a young, largely unproven squad, while struggling to connect with a disillusioned and, at times, outright furious fan base. Then there have been the stifling uncertainty of his future that has done nothing to dispel. Of course, as well, there's been the injuries. There's lots more in this article to read. Go check it out. It's on The Athletic, or is it now the New York Times? Anyway, go check it out. Yes, he might want to leave. In the next few days, there's going to be the Pochettino review, and I think most Chelsea fans want him to stay now. I'm seeing polls all over social media. Generally, the average is 65% want him to stay, and this is of tens and thousands of people voting on different, social media accounts putting out polls. And the players clearly want him to stay. So unless, for me, there's an outstanding alternative, even if in their review, this big review that's going to happen, they've done the numbers, oh, you just missed out, Poch. The data model says you're not good enough. What do you do? Where do you go? Because obviously people are talking about Kieran McKenna. Yeah, he's done a great job at Ipswich. But this is the same, we started talking to Company when he got Burnley promoted. Yeah, look at Company in the Premier League. He's not a Chelsea manager. This is all chicken oriental, mate. It's mental. No disrespect to Kieran McKenna. He might be a great coach. But it feels like another Graham Potter kind of, move. But Graham Potter was performing in the Premier League with that kind of sample model. And to remove this figure in Pochettino that the players like, that's got all this experience, that's trending in a positive direction, that you don't have to pay money to sack. Do you see what I mean? It's crazy. So, of course, we will follow this review and all news breaking regarding it. But this is my video on Chelsea's season, how the players have played, how Pochettino's performed, how we've evolved, and also referenced this article on the big Pochettino review. So let me know what you think, guys. Thank you as always for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you've enjoyed a little bit of a longer video today. And I hope to see you back here very soon on Football Therapy